The story that stays. Years later, the story of the little girl who walked into an office asking to buy a dad would spread, shared in magazines, whispered in the city, recounted at charity galas. Nathaniel often spoke at events for children's welfare and single-parent support, using his platform not to boast of his wealth, but to remind people that the greatest riches are found in showing up for those who need you. At home, the drawing Evie made that first winter remained framed in Nathaniel's study, a daily reminder of what mattered most. Some nights, as the family sat together by the fire, Eden would read aloud from her latest book, Evie curled between them. Nathaniel would close his eyes, letting the words and warmth settle deep into his heart. If anyone had asked him years ago what made a family, he might have spoken about blood or legacy. Now he knew the truth. Family is built, moment by fragile moment, out of trust, forgiveness, and love. It was a lesson learned not in boardrooms, but in the humble strength of a little girl who believed that hope could buy her a father, and in the courage of a woman who let love in, even when she thought it was too late. In the end, it wasn't the billionaire's money that changed their lives. It was the choice to show up, to stay, and to love, no matter what. And that's a kind of wealth you can't ever buy. She liked the Vantage building, lemon wax, printer toner, quiet at all hours. Carl had taught her how to swipe his ID to sit in the lounge, as long as she promised not to wander. To everyone else, she was invisible, the janitor's kid, just waiting for her dad to finish cleaning. That's how she liked it. Upstairs, chaos deepened. A project manager spilled coffee and didn't even notice. The lead systems engineer, Ramon, banged his fist on the desk. "We're going to get roasted in the press. We won't recover from this." The investors would arrive in 3 hours. The vultures from rival firms would circle by morning. Then, 3 soft knocks at the glass wall. Carl Rhodes stood outside the war room, mop in hand, eyes wide. "Sir?" He addressed Elliot as if afraid to speak. "Sorry for the interruption, but Zahara says she thinks she knows what's wrong with your system." Silence. Someone snorted. "Who's Zahara?" "My daughter." Carl's face burned, but he didn't back down. "She's 12. A few stifled laughs. Elliot raised his hand. "What exactly does she think she knows?" Carl shrugged, desperate. "Something about a permissions overwrite and a server path error." Shira blinked, her attention finally breaking from the endless lines of code. Elliot just stared. Carl turned to go, embarrassed, but added, "She said it sounded like a recursive call issue, if that means anything." That one sentence stopped the room cold. Downstairs in the break room, Carl sat beside Zahara. "What did you tell them?" She shrugged. "I said if a recursive call gets triggered without a stack limit, it can crash the whole backend. Happens in games, too." Carl smiled, half lost. "Baby, I have no idea what that means." She grinned, handing him the notebook. "It's okay, Dad. I'll write it down." Back in the war room, Shira's head snapped up. "Wait, did she say recursive call?" Elliot folded his arms. "You think she just guessed that?" "That's not something you see on TV," Shira replied, an idea forming. "Recursive calls, if you don't program an exit, they loop forever. You have to know what you're looking for." A young intern whispered. "But she's 12. Shira ignored him. Her mind was racing. 10 minutes later, Zahara entered the war room, her backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes wide but unafraid. Carl followed, nerves raw, mop forgotten. The room stared, skeptical, silent, on the edge of something none of them could name. Zahara asked, "Can I sit?" Elliot gestured. "Go ahead." Shira crouched beside her. "Can I ask how you learned about recursive calls?" "I was making a game. My sprite kept freezing. Read a bunch of forums, tried different fixes." Zahara shrugged, casual, unbothered. She plugged her tablet into the USB port, opened a terminal window and started typing. Lines of code flew by. Suddenly she froze. "Here, line 2023. It's calling itself every time, spawning another process, never closing." Alexei looked over, then whistled. "She's right. Recursive call loop inside the server restart sequence. Buried under permissions override. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." Zahara flipped to a diagram in her notebook. "Patch it here. Limit parent command to 5 iterations. It should stop the chain." Elliot hesitated, then gave the nod. Alex typed as Zahara directed. Hit enter. The room held its breath. One by one, monitors flickered to life. Emails, server dashboards, even the precious investor demo files. Relief broke out. Cautious at first, then growing. Claps, cheers, stunned faces. But no one knew the storm was far from over. In that moment, a new question formed, one that would define everything that followed. Who would sabotage the company from the inside? And was Zahara the only one who could find out? 10 minutes later, Zahara entered the war room. Her backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes wide but unafraid. Carl followed, nerves raw, mop forgotten. The room stared, skeptical, silent, on the edge of something none of them could name. Zahara asked, "Can I sit?" Elliot gestured. "Go ahead." Shira crouched beside her. "Can I ask how you learned about recursive calls?" "I was making a game. My sprite kept freezing. Read a bunch of forums, tried different fixes." Zahara shrugged, casual, unbothered. She plugged her tablet into the USB port, opened a terminal window, and started typing. Lines of code flew by. Suddenly she froze. "Here, line 2023. It's calling itself every time, spawning another process, never closing." Alexei looked over, then whistled. "She's right. Recursive call loop inside the server restart sequence. Buried under permissions override. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." Zahara flipped to a diagram in her notebook. "Patch it here, limit parent command to 5 iterations. It should stop the chain." Elliot hesitated, then gave the nod. Alexei typed as Zahara directed. Hit enter. The room held its breath. One by one, monitors flickered to life. Emails, server dashboards, even the precious investor demo files. Relief broke out, cautious at first, then growing. Claps, cheers, stunned faces. But no one knew the storm was far from over. In that moment, a new question formed, one that would define everything that followed. Who would sabotage the company from the inside? And was Zahara the only one who could find out? The war room was alive again, but it wasn't peace. As Zahara's fix brought the servers back to life, the sense of panic eased just enough for something colder to take its place. Suspicion. People clapped for Zahara, but some faces tightened. A few whispered to each other, eyes flicking to Carl, then back to their screens. No one said it aloud, but the question hung in the air. How could a 12-year-old do what our entire engineering team couldn't? Shira Collins, shaking her head in relief and awe, watched as Zahara unplugged her tablet and quietly zipped her backpack. Carl, tears in his eyes, wanted to hug his daughter, but he held back, not wanting to embarrass her in front of so many strangers. Elliot, still riding the rush of disaster averted, motioned Shira over. "Document every step she took. Get legal to log her contribution. I want the fix sanitized before the investors see it." Shira nodded, then hesitated. "Elliot, this kid, she's special. We need to—" Before she could finish, a sharp ping exploded from her laptop. Everyone in the room tensed as she leaned over, scanning the dashboard. New lines of code blinked red. Another breach. Not the recursive call loop Zahara had just patched, but a new, rapidly spreading anomaly. "What now?" Elliot snapped, his voice raw. Shira's fingers flew across the keys. "It's a secondary script, different syntax. It didn't trigger until the main loop was cleared. It's piggybacking on our admin permissions updater." Alexei, watching from behind a mess of cables, frowned. "A kill switch. Whoever planted the first one set up a contingency plan. This is coordinated." In the back of the room, Martin Liu, the lead software architect, a man who'd barely clapped for Zahara, crossed his arms. "Figures. Probably something she touched. Letting a child in the system. This is what happens." Alexei shot back. "You want to check the logs? She just saved your job." Martin glared, but the moment was already moving past him. Zahara, standing near the door with Carl, watched the argument, brow furrowed. She took a tentative step forward. I think I know that code. It's like a tool I tested in a game once. If you kill the script the wrong way, it wipes everything." Shira's head whipped around. "Show me." Zahara walked to her side. In front of the entire room, she pulled up the code, pointed to the sequence. "Here, it's bouncing admin access between ghost accounts. You have to null it before it pings again." Alexei grinned, admiration clear. She's right. His fingers danced across the keys. Suppressing background ping check. Now. The screens flickered. The red lines vanished. Shira let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. For a moment, relief. Then reality crashed back. Elliot, hands on his hips, stared at Zahara. You said you learned all this on your own? She nodded, eyes down. I just like puzzles. He turned to Carl. We'd like to offer her a mentorship, paid after school, supervised. She'll have access to our test environments. I want to see what she can do when people actually support her. Carl was speechless. It was as if he'd stepped into someone else's life. But before he could answer, Shira's laptop pinged again. A new alert. Shira scanned the logs. Someone inside triggered all of this. It wasn't an outside attack. The breaches originated from an internal terminal. The room went dead quiet. Alexei typed quickly, pulling up entry logs. We can trace the login sessions. Elliot's jaw tightened. Do it. Now. The hunt for the Saboteur began. As the engineers dug through virtual footprints, Zahara, now sitting beside Shira, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands, watched in fascination. Look for admin keys that end in 009B, she suggested, her finger on the screen. That's in every flagged instance. Shira's eyes widened. You sure? Zahara nodded. Within minutes, the list of suspects narrowed. Only 6 employees had the clearance to run those commands. Zahara pointed to a login path. A machine scheduled for recycling. Disabled, unused for weeks. Somehow reactivated from the inside. That's a decoy, Alexei muttered. A shell machine. Someone used it to hide their trail. Shira, shaking, zoomed in. It's still ghosted, but whoever used it logged in from the internal network. She cross-checked user IDs. One match stood out. Martin and Lou. Silence fell like a guillotine. Carl, standing near the doorway, put it together before anyone else. That's the guy who kept questioning Zahara, right? Shira nodded. He was the loudest critic. Elliot's face darkened. Where is he now? Someone answered. Left for coffee 20 minutes ago. He's not coming back, Elliot said grimly. While the office reeled, the world outside was about to find out. Word of the crisis and Zahara's solution spread fast inside Vantage Core Solutions. Engineers from other floors peeked into the war room, whispering. Some looked at Zahara with awe, others with doubt, a few with fear. There are people who embrace change, and there are people who fight it, especially when it comes from a kid who wasn't even supposed to be there. Elliot and Shira quietly debriefed the leadership team, collecting every scrap of evidence. We don't report this until we have the whole fire, not just the smoking gun, Elliot warned. Get every login, every terminal event, every file access. If there's a mole, we expose him and protect the company. But as the dust settled, a new challenge emerged, one Zahara never saw coming. Friday morning, the building was quieter than ever. Not the good kind of quiet, the kind that made every footstep echo, every conversation hush as soon as you entered the room. People stared at Zahara in the hallways, then quickly looked away. Some whispered. Others seemed almost resentful. There were rumors that management wanted to replace the old guard with child prodigies. Others called it a PR stunt. Shira stayed close, making sure Zahara felt safe and seen. Give them time, she reassured her. Some people need to see results more than once before they'll believe. Zahara, sipping apple juice from a paper cup, looked unconvinced. Time doesn't fix everything. No, Shira admitted, but talent does. And you just saved the company. That afternoon, Elliot called a board meeting, this time with evidence. Security logs, server reports, one name in bold, Martin Liu. This was malicious, Elliot told the stone-faced executives. He sabotaged our demo, met with outside firms, and tried to force a buyout or collapse. The only reason you're seeing this now is because Zahara Rhodes, our janitor's daughter, caught it before he could destroy us. A murmur ran through the room. A silver-haired board member looked at Elliot. And this girl? She's 12? Elliot nodded. She's the smartest person in the building. That word, invisible, lingered in the boardroom like a curse. Invisible until now. Downstairs, Carl signed out for the day. He'd never felt prouder or more afraid. He saw the look some gave his daughter. Admiration, yes, but also envy and something darker. As he waited for the elevator, he saw Zahara's reflection in the glass, standing beside Shira, clutching her old notebook, the same one that saved them all. Neither of them knew that by Monday, Zahara's story would be on every tech blog, every social feed, even the evening news. But for now, father and daughter just went home, quiet, proud, and, at least for one night, finally seen. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be seen for the first time? By the very people who always look past you? Or what it means to suddenly carry the hopes and doubts of an entire company, a father's quiet dreams, and even the fears of people twice your age? For Zahara Rhodes, the aftermath of a single act of brilliance was about to change her world forever. But with every spotlight comes a shadow, and not everyone celebrates a new kind of hero. Monday morning arrived with a storm no one could outrun. By 8:30 a.m., the story was everywhere. Janitor's daughter saves leading tech firm from meltdown. 12-year-old coding prodigy exposes sabotage. How one girl outsmarted a room full of experts. In the office lobby, journalists jostled with cameras. There was a line of local reporters outside the building. By noon, national news wanted interviews. On social media, Zahara's name trended with hashtags Chakacha, Girl Genius, Shaksha, Janitor Hero, Shaksha, Code Queen. Carl Rhodes, humble, invisible Carl, watched from the service hallway, clutching his work badge so tightly it nearly snapped. He was proud, but he was scared too. The attention changed everything. People from all over sent emails, some kind, some cruel. There were offers of scholarships, summer camps, even a call from MIT's outreach program. The company's investors doubled down on their deal. Vantage Core's value soared overnight. In the elevator, people who had ignored Carl for 5 years now smiled at him and asked about his brilliant daughter. Zahara's photo, her hair messy, sleeves too long, holding that battered notebook, was everywhere. But inside the office, the reaction was split. Some staff came to congratulate Zahara, asking her to sign their code printouts or explain a bug they couldn't solve. A group of junior devs treated her like a legend. But others avoided her gaze, whispered behind closed doors, called her a walking PR stunt. The old guard, those who'd built their careers on slow, cautious progress, felt threatened by a child who'd fixed what they couldn't. Martin Liu's absence hung over the team like a thundercloud. That morning, Elliot called Zahara and Carl into his glass-walled office. Shira and Alex were already there, along with HR, legal, and the company's PR chief. Zahara, Elliot began gently, there's a lot happening now. Some people want you to talk to the press. Some just want to meet you. We want you to know. You don't have to do anything you don't want. Zahara sat on the edge of her chair, looking smaller than ever. Her voice was quiet but steady. If telling my story helps someone like me believe they can try, I'll do it. But just once, please. Carl squeezed her shoulder, a silent promise. I'm right here. The interview was short and awkward, but Zahara's honesty cut through every question. How did you know what to do? I taught myself. I like puzzles. What's it like to work beside adults? They listened to me. That made it easier. What do you want to be when you grow up? The same thing I am now, just with my own desk. The video went viral before Zahara could even get back to her homework. But as the world cheered, the shadows grew longer. Online trolls claimed she was a fake, a plant, a mascot for corporate PR. Anonymous engineers posted snide comments. No way a kid did this. Total setup. In meetings, a few senior staff made jokes about child labor or muttered about the future of tech being nap time in juice boxes. Shira saw it all and made sure to shield Zahara. You can't make everyone believe in you, she told her, but you can make sure you believe in yourself. For Carl, the change was more intimate. Elliot offered him a raise and better hours, a chance to work days and be there for Zahara in ways he'd only dreamed of. Now every morning, father and daughter walked in together, Carl in his new polo shirt, Zahara in an oversized company hoodie. Sometimes people greeted them. Sometimes they looked away. But one thing never changed. Zahara still brought her notebook. She still took apart code, found bugs no one else noticed, and spent hours beside Shira or Alexi in the server room. Her mind was always at work, but her heart, that was more guarded. The world was loud now, applauding, questioning, doubting, watching. But Zahara just wanted to solve the next puzzle. Days passed, the company changed. So did Zahara. Elliot and the board announced a new next-generation mentorship for young, underprivileged students. Other companies called, asking if they could borrow Zahara for a weekend workshop. Colleges sent letters, promising scholarships. Shira helped Zahara set up her first secure login and badge. It took 6 tries. Zahara hated the camera and kept blinking. But with every step forward, something shifted in the air. The old culture of closed doors, quiet superiority, and invisible labor began to break. The staff was more careful now, not just about code, but about who they noticed and who they ignored. One afternoon, as Zahara and Shira debugged a stubborn server glitch, Shira asked, "Do you ever wish you'd stayed invisible?" Zahara hesitated, eyes fixed on the screen. "Sometimes. It was quieter, but I like helping. Even if some people think I don't belong," Shira smiled. "You belong more than anyone I know." But Zahara's biggest test was still coming. The national spotlight brought attention and scrutiny. A high-profile magazine wanted a cover story. The mayor's office invited her for a photo op. At home, Carl's phone rang constantly. Old friends, reporters, even family from back east wanted to talk to the genius kid. Zahara tried to keep her head down, but the world wouldn't let her. One night, after everyone else had left, Zahara stayed late in the server room. The building was quiet, almost eerie. She flipped to the last page of her notebook and began to draw. A door cracked open, with words above it. "Keep asking." She knew she'd never be invisible again. Not really. Carl found her there, half asleep over her notes. He knelt beside her, voice low. "You changed everything, you know." Zahara shook her head. "I just fixed what was broken." Carl's eyes shone with pride and worry. "They're always going to look at you, Z. Some will be proud, some will be jealous, but don't ever let them make you small. You're bigger than any of this." He carried her home that night, her arms around his neck like she was still a little girl. He wished she could stay that way forever, just for a little longer. As weeks became months, the world kept spinning. Other stories replaced Zahara's in the news. The trolls moved on. But inside Vantage Core Solutions, nothing was quite the same. People double-checked their assumptions. They listened harder. They watched for brilliance in new places. Sometimes after school, Zahara would sit quietly in the break room and watch the engineers work, remembering the first day she'd solved the puzzle no one else could. She still felt the eyes on her, both kind and cold, but now she met those eyes head-on. Shira would sometimes join her, sipping tea, talking about everything but code. "The world can be tough on people who don't fit the mold," she said, "but sometimes being different is your superpower." Zahara would nod, doodling in her notebook, a tiny smile on her lips. She had stopped waiting for permission. She had learned. Sometimes the world changes when you walk in quietly. Do your best, and don't wait for someone to tell you you're allowed. And for everyone watching, wondering if they'd ever be noticed, Zahara's story became more than a viral headline. It became a quiet revolution. In classrooms, in break rooms, in boardrooms, people began to look twice at the ones they used to overlook. And somewhere in Dallas, as dust settled over the city's gleaming towers, a father and his daughter, no longer invisible, walked home together. The future was uncertain, noisy, even scary, but it was theirs finally to shape. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt unseen or unheard, remember, brilliance doesn't need a business card. Sometimes the one who saves the day is just waiting for someone to ask, "What do you see?" And sometimes the answer is enough to change everything.